We begin this hour with another blow to President Trump's controversial travel ban executive order. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals has upheld the nationwide block of the president's EO that targeted 6 Muslim-majority countries. Let's get right to CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid in our Washington bureau. Paula, what does this decision mean?
This preserves the status quo. And a lower court had previously said it would not allow this policy to be enforced. The appeals court was asked to review that, and they agreed. They said, this 13-judge panel said that there were concerns that this policy may not be constitutional, especially when taken into context with statements the president made on the campaign trail about promising a, quote, Muslim ban. The court is looking at whether or not this policy could be found to discriminate on the basis of religion and not just be an exercise of the president's national security powers.
Yeah, you mentioned that panel. Chief Judge Gregory wrote whether it protects plaintiffs' right to challenge an executive order that in text speaks with vague words of national security, but in context drips with religious intolerance, animus, and discrimination. And that's what you're referring to in taking what the actual order was and the president's previous words. You heard the arguments a few weeks ago. Were you surprised by the ruling today?
I wasn't terribly surprised. This was a panel of 13 judges. The opinion mostly falls along partisan lines, about 10 to 3 Republican nominated judges, Democratic nominated judges to Republican nominated judges. And when I was in front of that panel listening to their questions for several hours, it was clear that they had a lot of skepticism about this argument that this was exclusively within the president's purview, within his right to make decisions about national security. Dana, I remember the Justice Department was having a really tough time defending statements that Sean Spicer had made about this policy, saying it was an example of how the president was making good on campaign promises. But the ACLU on the other side, they had a tough time, too, with the questions about, well, if any other president had put this policy forth, would it be legit on its face? But it seems, again, context was key here. And when they take this policy with all of the context surrounding it, with promises the president made, this court has found that it could be found unconstitutional.
One thing that stood out to me in just reading about it, one of the judges worried about using a candidate's word to evaluate a policy's motive, like the idea, can you look at college speeches as well?
Exactly. And one of the concurring judges, so you have judges who issue the opinion, judges who dissent, and then a concurring judge who said, even if we didn't look at the campaign statements, even if we ignore those, statements made during this administration are sufficient when taken together with this policy to establish that it may have been written with religious animus.
We remember all things said nowadays, I think, is one of the things everybody is thinking about right now. What happens next here then?
Well, we're still waiting for another appeals court, the Ninth Circuit, to take a look at the travel ban 2.0. They too heard arguments on this a couple weeks ago. So it would be very surprising, Dana, if they came to a different decision, because they had previously upheld blocks on the original travel ban. But it is likely that they too will uphold this block, and then there will be a push to get this to the Supreme Court, to get this in front of the justices next season when they hear new cases, because it's a difficult question about the extent to which the president can limit people coming into this country. They had some legitimate arguments. They had some strong arguments about the fact that many of these governments, they're not stable. They're not reliable. You can't trust the information that you're getting from them when you're trying to vet people. But the president's own statements have made it very complicated to defend this policy as being constitutional and solely based on national security.
CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid in Washington. Paula, thank you.